got back from lunch, and I also took a little break. So let's finish neuro. Oh god, what just happened? Alright, yeah, let's finish neuro, and then I'm gonna go study with my friends this afternoon, and then we'll take the exam or practice questions later tonight, later afternoon. Okay. So, we finished parking, so let's go on to. So, I was just looking at this, and let's do head injury. Okay, so there's different types of head injury. There's um, closed head injury, and with that we're gonna have like blunt trauma. We're gonna have concussion. So basilar skull fracture. Um, then hematomas. Um, have changes in level of consciousness. Well, I think with all of them, you have changes in level of consciousness, and then you just want to uh, intervention. So intervention, you just want to monitor intracranial pressure, which like increased intracranial pressure can lead to like seizures, Cushing's triad again, which is widened pulse pressure, irregular respiration, and bradycardia. We could have, yeah. So that's basically it. With head injury. Let's look at myasthenia gravis, because I don't know what the fuck that is. Voluntary juices are the thymus gland. Now, there's a singular impaired transmission, mild neural junction result voluntary. This results in voluntary muscle weakness. So muscle weakness. Oh, so this is like progressive deterioration, particularly in the respiratory system, muscle wasting. Usually from over medication, muscle vasculations may lead to respiratory distress, may be caused by exacerbation of adequate medication. Anticholinesterase, increased amount of acetylcholine, steroids, prednisone, cytotoxic medication, azathioprine. Okay. That's a new disease that I don't think I've learned. Gravis. So uh, voluntary muscle weakness. Signs and symptoms. Improves with the rest. So relaxation, ocular muscle fatigue, increase aspiration, dysphagia, and dysphonia. What is dysphonia? I thought it's called dysphagia. Dysphagia is unable to speak. Increased risk of aspiration. Progressive deterioration. Hot water. Respiratory. myasthenia gravis. So there's types. So the crisis of a medication. Respiratory crisis. Hypotension. Okay. So intervention. Maintain airway. High calorie meal. Eye care. Okay, I need to take a look at what this is. Because I seriously don't understand what the fuck I'm studying right now. We're in the neuro, so okay. Medication. Um, prednisone. Where is the thymus? Oh. So let's search up this disease. Uh, gravis. Hey Google. Pause.
Okay, pausing chocolate.
What this is. It's 25.
This is Sarah with RegisteredNurseRN.com, and in this video, I'm going to be going over myasthenia gravis. And this video is part of an NCLEX review series over the neuro system. And as always, at the end of this YouTube video, you can access the free quiz that will test you on this condition. So let's get started. First, let's start out talking about what is myasthenia gravis. It is an autoimmune condition where the body attacks the muscle receptors that control voluntary muscles. And this is going to lead to muscle weakness. And anytime you think of this condition, think of muscles, specifically muscles that are becoming weak, and they're the voluntary ones that you can really control. So what type of muscles are going to be affected in this condition? Well, we have the muscles of the eyes, and this is usually the first sign that most patients have. They may notice that their eyelids start to droop. It can affect one eyelid or both, and they may notice that they start to have double vision, and this is where those muscles that control how your eyes align are becoming weak. So they may have what's known as the lazy eye, where one eye turns outward compared to the other one, which is straight, called strabismus. Another thing is that those muscles in the throat can become weak. And this is another common sign that a lot of patients have. They may notice that they have voice changes where their voice is a lot more hoarse, or they have difficulty swallowing, because swallowing uses a lot of muscles, and these muscles are weak. So they're not swallowing properly. And they may notice that chewing is an effort. They cannot chew normally, and they become really exhausted chewing. Those muscles just aren't doing the job. Along with other facial muscles, it can also extend to the arms and legs, and in severe cases, those muscles that we use for breathing and respiratory can fail. And we'll be talking about myasthenia crisis and cholinergic crisis a little bit later, and these muscles just aren't allowing them to breathe, so that can happen in severe cases. Now let's look and see what is happening in this condition. Let's look at the patho. Okay, first let's look at our key players. What structures are involved in this condition? Number one, we have the neuromuscular junction, and this is where, just like its name says, is where the neuron and the muscle fiber meet together, and where the neurotransmitter acetylcholine is going to be released. Now within that neuromuscular junction, we have some other important structures that play a role in this condition. One includes the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, which are represented here in our purple, along with our muscle-specific kinase. This can also be affected in this condition, and its role is for helping maintain and build within this neuromuscular junction. But for this lecture, we're just really concentrating on these nicotinic receptors. Another key player, of course, is our acetylcholine, our neurotransmitter, and then we have the immune system to deal with, because it's the one that is producing these antibodies that are attacking these nicotinic receptors. Now let's look at the signs and symptoms. What are you going to see in these patients that have this condition? One thing I want you to remember is one of these hallmark findings. Specifically, whenever you're talking to the patient, asking them their signs and symptoms, they're going to report that their muscle weakness tends to get weaker with activity, especially those repetitive activities, which makes sense based on the information we just learned about how that acetylcholine is attaching to those limited receptors that don't have the damage from the antibody. So that just makes sense. They're chewing, keep contracting the muscle. There's just a limited amount of acetylcholine that can go to those limited amount of receptors. So the muscles are going to get weak. And when they actually rest the muscle, their muscle strengthness improves because they're not stimulating that muscle. So remember that. Okay, so to help us remember the signs and symptoms, let's remember the word weakness, because what do we have? We have weakness in this condition. Okay, W for weakness in the neck. Some patients, literally, if it gets so severe, they will have trouble holding up their own neck. Face and the arms and the legs. E for eyelid drooping, and like I said earlier, this can affect one eyelid or it can affect both, and this is going to tie into our next sign and symptom. For A, appearance mask-like, and they're going to have like this very sleepy look to their face, and it's expressionless. They don't have any expression because the eyelids, especially if they're drooping on both sides, pulls the eyelids down, and their face muscles are so weak they can't really form proper expression. So, and in myasthenia gravis,
failure.
Know that this disease can go in. Test is before the test you want to note what's going on with the patient, what are all their signs and symptoms, then the medication was given, how fast did they improve, and what happened during their improvement. Now if they are in myasthenia crisis or myasthenia gravis, their signs and symptoms will temporarily improve, but that gives the neurologist an idea what's going on and treatments to improve the patient's signs and symptoms and quality of life. Okay. Big medication used to treat this condition, of course, is the anticholinesterase medication. And one common one is called pyridostigmine. And like I said over here, whenever you are educating your patient or you are the one who's administering medications, try to schedule it with their meal times or the times that they're going to be doing something that requires a lot of effort during its peak time, which is about 30 minutes to an hour before meals. Now, again, with this drug, there's complications, and they could experience a myasthenic crisis if they were receiving not enough of the medication. So if they weren't receiving enough of it, but if they're receiving way too much of it, they're at risk for cholinergic crisis. And as a nurse, you just want to educate the patient about some signs and symptoms, maybe that they are going into cholinergic crisis and things that you need to watch out for caring for this patient. So what are some signs and symptoms of a cholinergic crisis? They're similar to the overstimulation of that parasympathetic nervous system. And we talked in depth in that NCLEX review about that. So let's just recap. Remember, your parasympathetic nervous system is that rest and digest system. So its role is to help us digest food and reproduce and rest. So what's going to happen is this is going to be an overdrive because it's the opposite of the sympathetic system, which was that fight or flight system. So we're going to have pupil constriction, bronchoconstriction, increased salivation, and increased mucus production, which majorly puts them at risk for aspiration and respiratory problems. Also GI system, because it's being stimulated to digest food.
Okay, cool. So basically just like voluntary weakness, so we want to watch for respiration, aspiration risk. This is different from a stroke because it's not, stroke is usually like one-sided weakness. Am I right? I'm starting to doubt myself. I think stroke is one-sided weakness. Yeah, one-sided of the body. That's true. So one-sided weakness instead of both sides, and also respiratory instead of like just weakness and like just like drooping one side. Um, yeah. It's also autoimmune, not caused by a clot. Cool. Okay. So next up, let's do sclerosis. Amyotrophic. Sclerosis. So what's the difference between this and multiple sclerosis? There's multiple sclerosis in the middle, or in like central nervous system, and this is lateral. Hey Google, pause.
All right, guys, so we're going to go into neuro real quick. Again, we're going to do a basic overview of neuro, basically the signs and symptoms. Let's get into it here. So, okay, so neurological disorders. We have really 4 big ones. We have, in your regular body, you have your central nervous system, and you also have your peripheral nervous system. So your central nervous system, if you guys remember, is really just your brain and your spinal cord. Your peripheral nervous system is really all the other things outside of the brain and spinal cord. So, in your central nervous system, you can develop multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease that affect your brain and spinal cord, okay? Your peripheral nervous system, you guys can develop, well, not you guys, but your patients can develop MG, which is myasthenia gravis, and ALS, which is just a fancy word for Lou Gehrig's disease, okay? So, let's go into specific signs and symptoms of.
So okay, cool. All right, let's do ALS, I guess. Actually, I want to do ALS with MS. So let's do seizures. I think I know enough about seizures. You just Seizure precaution. Let's take a look. So with seizures, I think I know seizures pretty well. I was a depression. Okay. I feel pretty good about this. I still have like a lot of the pages left. I only used up this much, and I still have 4 left, so probably like one, two, three, 4, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Shall we look at? There's no autonomic dysreflexia. Oh, I'm surprised there's no AD here. Alright, let's do MS. This is primarily for strokes, I think. Oh, I do have MS here. Oh yeah. See, we didn't learn about ALS. Okay. So Oh!